One, no? Okay, on time. Let's begin. Okay. Okay, so let's begin. What should I mention? That it's the same link. Okay, so let's begin. So we are doing on-site students also, please make sure you have your printed Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Dedication to Srila Baladeva Devotion, who presented so nicely the Govinda Bharshya commentary on Vedanta philosophy. Prabhupada's edition of Bhagavad Gita as it is generally followed Baladeva Devotion's commentary. Why is this like this? And this commentary was published in the Bengali script by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The name of that commentary is Gita Bhushana. Baladeva Devotion is most famous for his Govinda Bharshya commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is commonly known as Vedanta Darshan, Vedanta philosophy. So Prabhupada has dedicated this own edition of Bhagavad Gita to him. I'm going to be using as a supplementary text Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary called Vidvat Ranjan. Bhaktivinoda gave two different commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. One is called Rasika Ranjan, another is called Vidvat Ranjan. My camera is off. How do I? Oh, my video is off. Then, sorry about that. Okay, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave two commentaries known as, this is what I'm going to use as my whiteboard itself. One is Rasika Ranjana, another is called Vidvat Ranjana. Rasika Ranjana, he gave it along with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Vidvat Ranjana, he gave along with Baladeva Vidyabhushan Prabhu's commentary. Both are in Bengali and they are just paraphrases. Very brief commentaries. And you would be having with you Rasik Ranjan and Vidvat Ranjan. Online students also should have received them, digital version, an English translation of it by Bhanu Maharaj. Okay. Okay, between these two commentaries, there is some difference. Rasika Ranjan, it itself means Rasika refers to someone who relishes. The relisher's delight. Ranjan means delight. Vidvat Ranjan means the scholar's delight. Vidvat Ranjan is modeled after Baladeva Devotion Prabhu's commentary. Rasik Ranjan is modeled after Vishwanath Thakur's commentary. Most of the text is identical actually. At the end of every chapter, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives some lessons to be learned, some conclusions. That come in Vidvat Ranjan. In Rasik Ranjan, we don't come across that. For Rasic Ranjan, he gives an introduction, a detailed introduction. That introduction does not come in Vidwat Ranjan. So that's a basic distinction between these two. Here we are going to be focusing on Vidwat Ranjan portion. This is the old method of publication. The original text is printed in the upper portion of the page, and then we find below that the commentary portion, and then below that the next level commentary, like here with the Bhagavad Gita verse. This portion is Baladev Vidyabhushan's commentary written in Bengali script, and this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's own Vidwat Ranjan. This previously this layout was followed. Okay. Okay, I have a question now. See, that is this setting the scene here. I want the students to tell me what was the situation that led to the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone? How is it that the Bhagavad Gita came to be spoken?
We decided we will not fight because we are confused.
Okay, but how did the war come about? How did the war come about?
Duryodhana was not willing to compromise.
Duryodhana was not willing to compromise. Why he was not willing to compromise?
Because he wanted the whole kingdom himself.
The entire
He did
kingdom.
not give anything to Pandavas. He wanted to one seven kingdom.
To whom did the kingdom actually belong? Why?
His father was Duryodhana.
Dhritarashtra was not qualified to be in the kingdom.
Because he was blind. So therefore the kingdom was supposed to go to Pandu's sons. Any other reason why the kingdom was meant to be with the Pandavas? Yeah, they were, first of all, they were surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they were also righteous. Okay, so then how did the war suddenly come in?
And they were given two different kingdoms, Hastinapur and Indraprastha. Then that chess, what is it? Pasa, that playing.
They played dice.
They lost, Pandavas lost because they cheated.
How did that dice thing come up?
So when they were opening the kingdom, opening service, that time all Duryodhana was English.
Upon seeing the opulence of
So that so he suggested him to invite Yudhishthira. Or I think Sakuni was invited for come from playing dice. Because in Kshatriyas they can, if they are challenged, they cannot
refuse. They cannot refuse.
So then Yudhishthira agreed that in Hastinapur, that match was played in that.
So what was the agreement for that dice game?
Whoever loses the
For losing the kingdom?
for 14 years, for 13 years,
Exile.
1 year, for 13 years, exile, and 1 year.
In 12 years, when they will got again, maybe again.
Again. That was a condition. And the Pandavas, they lost.
And Draupadi was
Insulted. And then, anyway, they lost. The Pandavas, they lost. So then,
So then they completed the exile,
mm,
and then 1 year in Bonito also, but at last, when
there was one king was there where he was hidden Pandavas.
that's okay. The last year, they were supposed to incognito in a disguised state.
so
So they fulfill the condition.
but according to the The last Arjuna was in the fight when he fought with all. Where this no that
Virata.
kingdom from the side of Virata king. Because somehow that they came to know that they are hidden in Virata. So they attacked his army. So Arjuna came in the form of Arjuna. So he fought, but they recognized that it is Arjuna fighting like that. So then he told them, no, this government is not ended. Just still, according to the but according to the part of the calculation, that
Yeah, anyway, it was after sunset.
it was finished.
Mm.
So on that, then we do not know because we're not finished. So then again, go to exile, but then we have 1 year information.
1 year they were actually discussing.
Okay.
After all of this, there was 1 year of discussion on. We'll just go back again. So this side Yudhishthir would send message to the Dhritarashtra saying that war is not good. Please give the kingdom. And the Dhritarashtra would give message back. Yes, war is not good. Please don't ask for the kingdom. So that was going on. And then that didn't work out. So finally, they wanted a war. Then Lord Krishna asked that you give them just land, or just give them 5 villages, because they are Kshatriyas. They are meant to rule. This is their service to the society. Give each of them 1 village. And then Duryodhana said, I won't even give that amount of land into which you can put on needle. I won't even give that much. So then war was inevitable. So then they selected Kurukshetra as a place and they assembled their armies. Then what happened?
Then Arjuna wanted to see whoever come here to fight with him. So
that's how the Gita is like. Okay. The scene is set with only the need for a brief note regarding this translation and commentary. The general pattern translators have followed in rendering Bhagavad Gita into English has been to brush aside the person Krishna to make room for their own concepts and philosophies. The history of the Mahabharata is taken as quaint mythology, as strange mythology, and Krishna becomes a poetic device for presenting the ideas of some anonymous genius. Or at best, he becomes a minor historical personage. But the person Krishna is both the goal and the substance of Bhagavad Gita so far as the Gita speaks of itself. This translation then and the commentary that accompanies it propose to direct the reader to Krishna rather than away from him. The Bhagavad Gita thus becomes wholly consistent and comprehensible. Since Krishna is the speaker of the Gita and its ultimate goal as well, Bhagavad Gita as it is presents as great scripture in its true terms. Okay, then we come to the preface. Okay, Prabhupada begins by talking about this section. This is actually the second edition, in the sense, meaning this is the unabridged edition. Let me make it more clear. First time Prabhupada printed the Bhagavad Gita, that was a smaller edition. Originally, I wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is in the form in which it is presented now. When this book was first published, the original manuscript was unfortunately cut short to less than 400 pages, without illustrations and without explanations for most of the original verses of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In all of my other books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Ishopanishad, etc., the system is that I give the original verse, its English transliteration, word for word Sanskrit English equivalents, translations, and purports. This makes the book very authentic and scholarly and makes the meaning self-evident. I was not very happy, therefore, when I had to minimize my original manuscript. But later on, when the demand for Bhagavad Gita as it is considerably increased, I was requested by many scholars and devotees to present the book in its original form. That means the manuscript, what he had written. That itself they had requested. So then Prabhupada says that therefore he is presenting it with parampara explanation. Parampara explanation is explanation that is based on the parampara. Our Krishna consciousness movement is genuine, historically authorized, natural, and transcendental due to its being based on Bhagavad Gita as it is. It is gradually becoming the most popular movement in the entire world. If I have any credit in this connection, it does not belong to me personally, but it is due to my eternal spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Parivrajakacharya, Ashtottara Shatashi Shiva, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. So the reason why he gives credit to his Guru Maharaj is that he is following the Parampara system. If I personally have any credit in this matter, it is only that I have tried to present Bhagavad Gita as it is without any adulteration. Before my presentation of Bhagavad Gita as it is, almost all the English editions of Bhagavad Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambition. But our attempt in presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead means to present Krishna's will and to clarify that will. Krishna is a person, is a real person, and Krishna has a certain desire. When Krishna says, Manmanabho Madhukto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru, etc., we, unlike the so-called scholars, do not say that Krishna and his inner spirit are different. Krishna is absolute, and there is no difference between Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes, etc. This absolute position of Krishna is difficult to understand for any person who is not a devotee of Krishna in the system of parampara, discipline, etc. So the idea is that when we consult the parampara authorities, since they are transparent via media, their explanations are the same as Krishna's explanation. Their intentions are the same as Krishna's intentions. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is basically saying that you should just focus on me. This Manmana Bhav Bhaktu Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru is one way of saying. In Bhagavatam, it is clarified by saying Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevam Archanam Vandanam Dasim Sakyamatmana Vedam. Lord Maharaj statement that without any motivation, we should engage in these 9 activities. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. That word Vishnu should be attached to each of those words. Shravanam, Vishnu, to hear about Lord Vishnu. Vishnu refers to Vishnu Tattva. So when we say Krishna, we refer to Krishna and his primary expansions. Hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna, remembering Krishna, and so on. That is what is referred to here. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, you should engage in this activity, and this should be your means, this should be your goal. That's all. It's just, you're all my servants, you should engage in my service. That's what you'll hear in the Vaishnava Parampara. However, that is not what most people try to understand. They have this idea called Mayavada, that Krishna is a product of Maya. And their explanation is called Mayavada Bhashya. Our only purpose is to present this Bhagavad Gita as it is, in order to guide the conditioned student to the same purpose for which Krishna descends to this planet once in a day of Brahma, or every, 1,000, million, billion, 8 billion 600 million years. Where is this information coming from? In Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Rupa Goswami presents evidence that certain forms of the Supreme Lord incarnate once in a day of Brahma. They are called Kalpa, avatars. Avatara simply means a form of the Supreme Lord who descends from the spiritual world. Avatarati iti avatara. Kalpa avatara. So sometimes the original source of all these incarnations, he also descends. So because he descends to the sense perception of the conditioned souls is called avatar. So Krishna also descends. He comes once in a day of Brahman. This purpose is stated in Bhagavad Gita, and we have to accept it as it is. This is a simple point. Actually, if you look at the Sanskrit text of Bhagavad Gita, through any translation, in fact, it is not difficult to establish Krishna consciousness. It's not that because of Prabhupada's translation. You can take any XYZ's translation. If you look at the shloka, word meanings translation, Bhagavad Gita, if the translation is correct, then naturally you have to come to the conclusion that you should become a devotee of Krishna. That is a natural conclusion of the text. And in the parampara method of understanding, you have to go with the as it is meaning. You have to go with this is what the Shastra says, this is what it means. That's all. Just keep it straight and simple. And since Bhagavad Gita is the summary of all the Upanishads, it is the essence of all Vedic Shastra. The conclusions that come in Bhagavad Gita, that should be accepted. That's all. It's a simple thing. But these Mayavadi people and these other people, they don't accept it like this. They have other conceptions. They think, no, Bhagavad Gita, why I should take it so seriously? I will read Upanishads, I will read this, that. So many things they think, and they think that they should understand that first. They don't understand that Bhagavad Gita is presenting and clarifying. No, I should also explain something here. There are some scriptures which are called Nirnaya. Nirnaya means that which requires clarification, that whose meaning needs to be ascertained, that which requires clarification. And then there are other scriptures that are called Nirnayaka, that which provides clarification. So between two scriptures, one scripture may be Nirnaya, it may require clarification, and another scripture may provide that clarification. So for instance, I'll give an example. This example is coming from Vallabhacharya, but it is acceptable to us also. Look at the Upanishads. Okay, various Upanishads. Isha Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Prashna Upanishad, Mundaka, Mandaka, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, Taittiriya, so many are there. Okay. Upanishads. Upanishads are part of what is known as Shruti. Shruti means the four Vedas. Within the four Vedas, you have four portions. You have a Brahmana portion. It's like this. Samhita. Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad. Okay, so you have within the Rig Veda, you have Rig Veda Samhitas, Rig Veda Brahmanas, Rig Veda Aranyakas, Rig Veda Upanishads. So the Upanishads, they are parts of particular Vedas. The Smriti is a totally different category. Smriti is written by realized sages in order to explain the meaning of Shruti. Okay, Shruti is audio. Therefore, how you utter it, recite it, all of this becomes very important. So so you have the Upanishads. Now the Upanishads, they are clarified in Bhagavad Gita. So between the Upanishads and Gita, the Upanishads is Nirnaya. The Upanishads require to be clarified. Upanishads are not clear. They use wordings which are not so easy to understand. So the Upanishads need clarification. And the Bhagavad Gita provides that clarification. So Bhagavad Gita is Nirnayaka. Is this clear so far? Okay. Gita itself is clarified in Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is clarified in Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. So these Mayavadi people, they don't accept that the Gita clarifies Upanishads. They think that the Upanishads clarify the Gita and therefore they come up with opposite misconceptions. But actually we know from the scriptures that the Upanishads are compared to cows. Sarvo Upanishado Gavaha, Dogdha Gopalanandana, Partho Vatsa Sudhir Vokta, Dugdham Gita Amritamah. So Bhagavad Gita is considered the essence of the Upanishads. So Upanishads are not considered the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So when we understand what is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, we should understand it is the conclusion of the Upanishads itself. The Upanishads, okay, let me go one step further. Before the Upanishads, these three portions are there, no, Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka. This portion is what is called Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda means Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka. Okay. The Upanishads itself clarifies the meaning of Karma Kanda. And the Gita is clarifying the teachings of the Upanishads. So if you correctly understand the Upanishads, if you understand Bhagavad Gita, you have a clear understanding of the entirety of Shruti, what the Shruti is teaching. You have a clear understanding, both the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda. Upanishads are also called Jnana Kanda. Okay. So when Lord Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita, it should be understood to be the final conclusion of the Veda, of the four Vedas. Lord Krishna first spoke Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some hundreds of millions of years ago. We have to accept this fact and thus understand the historical significance of Bhagavad Gita without misinterpretation on the authority of Krishna. So when in Bhagavad Gita you notice that Lord Krishna is speaking, he's saying that I taught this to the sun god many millions of years back. We have to accept it as fact. Everything that is taught in Bhagavad Gita should be accepted as fact. Arjuna is the ideal student, and Arjuna says, Sarvameta Dhrutam Mani. Whatever you say, I accept as fact. You cannot say that, the fact that Krishna spoke to Surya, sun god, it seems too fantastic, I cannot believe it. One portion of the Gita you cannot accept, another portion you cannot reject. You cannot do this kind of thing. Acceptance you accept fully. Absolutely. We have to accept this fact and thus understand the historical significance of Bhagavad Gita without misinterpretation on the authority of Krishna. To interpret Bhagavad Gita without any reference to the will of Krishna is the greatest offense. To interpret means, for instance, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he repeatedly says that devotional service unto him is the most important thing. It is the highest goal, it is the highest means. That is clear from the Gita text. But suppose you say, and the Mayavadis actually do say, this is all just some encouragement for children, for those who are unfit to understand the Upanishads, for them just to create some interest. Krishna is just speaking something. Don't take it too seriously. It is just something to generate your interest. Okay. In fact, they say, I myself have heard it. How can you expect Lord Krishna to present the highest conclusions of the Vedas to a Grihastha, a non-Brahmana? Right at the onset of a war. It's the wrong time, wrong place, wrong audience. So Krishna knows the truth, but Krishna is not speaking the truth. He's speaking something. little bit. Whatever Arjuna needs to hear is being taught that. Now, I must admit that there is the basic idea that in the Vedic system of education, you're only taught what you need to hear. That principle is correct. That principle by itself is correct only. That is not wrong. That is called Adhikar Uchita Shiksha. You are always taught things appropriate to your fitness. You are not taught things which are beyond your eligibility. But when they, but the mistake that they make is when the scripture itself says that Bhagavad Gita is clarifying the Upanishads, you cannot come up with some misconception to go against this gradation of scriptures. You cannot go against this gradation of scriptures. So that's correct. There is a principle that Shiksha is given according to Adhika, according to eligibility. That's correct. That principle is correct. But there is a higher principle that the scriptures are graded in this manner. Some scriptures are lower, some scriptures are higher. All of them are bona fide, but in this manner. So this is higher than that. Okay. So we cannot therefore say that Krishna, even though he said that, he really didn't mean it. That is what Prabhupada refers to as an interpretation here. So our duty is to understand the Bhagavad Gita the way Arjuna understood it. Now this is a key point that Prabhupada makes. Now within the last 200 years, there are a number of scholars who have written on how to understand the Bhagavad Gita and so on, in English, in European languages, in India, in Hindi, various other languages. Of course, even before that in Sanskrit, a lot of commentaries like that. Okay. So Gita study has been going on for a long period of time. But to this study of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada has given a very important point, that we must understand Bhagavad Gita the way Arjuna understood it. This is a special point you'll notice in the introduction also. This knowledge constitutes a great science, and each and every living being has to hear it for his own interest. By the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his personal sense gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. The Lord wants this, and he demands it. One has to understand the central point of Bhagavad Gita. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching the whole world the central point. And because we are not polluting the theme of Bhagavad Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for the practical understanding of Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. So if the moment you try to actually understand what Lord Krishna is teaching, Krishna begins to directly guide you. That is very, very important, that we come under the direct guidance of Lord Krishna. Vairagya, Vidya, and Bhakti are three factors right from Shraddha up to Prema. At all levels, there is only increase of direct knowledge, understanding, and realization of Krishna. That is called Vidya. Vairagya, internal detachment, external renunciation. And Bhakti, in the sense of internal attraction to Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, and external engagement in various activities of devotion service also. Okay, one thing is, if you have any questions, you can always ask me at any point in time. We hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we will consider our attempt a success. Okay, if you don't have a question, I have a question. Identify aspects of Prabhupada's mood and mission in the preface to Bhagavad Gita as it is. Discuss their importance for ISKCON. This is the next question. Okay, from this preface, do you sense any ideas that are repeatedly emphasized by Prabhupada, that is part of Prabhupada's own mood. See, every Acharya has a particular mood. He emphasizes particular things. He emphasizes certain things he does not give that much emphasis, certain things he is just silent about. This is all part of the mood of that Acharya. In this preface so far, any particular aspects of Prabhupada's mood we can see?
Prabhupada wants to study the Bhagavad Gita in Parampara.
Repeatedly he says. Now there are some things which Prabhupada says everywhere, says in the books, outside the books. Everywhere he says, he says in his explanation of the Bhagavad Gita. But you will also find some points you will find in every writing of his you will find. Small books also you will find certain points. So that kind of specific points, like for instance, we have to follow parampara. That is one point. We constantly see Prabhupada saying that. Any other point that you notice? Repeatedly Prabhupada emphasizes, repeatedly talks about it. Anything like that you can see?
It's wrong that
Okay. Anything else?
What the Mayavadis. Yeah. Almost everybody.
Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Desha Sarani. Yes, put it in his Pranama class.
There are more than some to defend.
The mission refers to particular goals.
Krishna consciousness.
Say,
Mission is the Prabhupada is also writing about it. Within the mission of our mission is that in our consciousness is that Krishna is 3% of Bhagavad. You have to have established.
that we have to always establish. Yes, always establish.
Our goal is that.
Correct. Our goal is that. One thing is, see, there are different ways by which we may want to propagate Krishna consciousness. For instance, actually in India, there are a number of people who think like this. You should bring people step by step up. To directly bring in the highest teaching, they'll run away. Okay. But if you notice the way Prabhupada presents it, his idea is from day one, I say the highest thing only. That's all. If you're not interested, go away. That's it. Go. I'm not bothered. Why I should be bothered about you. So that is one thing. Not only here, in so many places. Prabhupada, he created ISKCON. He created Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. He created Mahaprabhu Vrindavan Trust. He created for the scientists Bhaktivedanta Institute. For Bhaktivedanta Institute, even there, he said our basic point should be very straightforward. At one time, he wanted one magazine called Savigyan, meant to be a journal of the Bhaktivedanta Institute for preaching to the scientists. And he said there should be a logo, and the logo should be Lord Vishnu. He said, if you have a problem with this, go away. We don't have any. Even when he created ISKCON, he gave the name International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And somebody told him, why Krishna Consciousness? Make it International Society for God Consciousness. You can attract more people. When they come, then you can explain. International Society for Krishna Consciousness. If you have a problem, go. So that is another aspect that you notice. So he has a very clear mood. He also has a very clear mission also. So he's got a goal. The goal is very clear. The goal is same as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We don't have anything new for them. But definitely in the mood, how to achieve that goal, definitely Prabhupada has many things to say. So you cannot say, I'm interested in Prabhupada's ultimate goal, but I'm not interested in Prabhupada's method by which you reach that goal. That is like Ardha Gupiti Nyaya. This portion of Prabhupada, I like that portion of Prabhupada, I don't like. Because Prabhupada himself has shown in his own life that you can be so straightforward and still attract thousands of people. So you cannot say that this method of selling the product will not work. He has sold the product and it has worked. Any other points that you notice in this purport that is distinctly part of Prabhupada's own mission, his own movement, that you notice everywhere about Prabhupada? Anything from the online students? No, just one more. Just give me one more point.
But in that case, material person, they are thinking that they only satisfy the Krishna by the sense of the Krishna. But you see, the others are satisfied with the sense of the Krishna. They are forgetting their objective glory.
Okay, there is also this concept that everybody is trying to make themselves happy, but in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes it very clear. You don't do that, and instead of that, you be satisfied with. The Lord wants this, and He demands it. One has to understand this central point of that. Okay, what's your question? One becomes more and more realized, more he has a better understanding of Krishna. He becomes more and more detached and renounced. That is what is meant by progress. We become more attractive to Krishna. We engage more and more in devotional service to Krishna. That is called progress. Increase of Vairagya Vidya Bhakti is called spiritual progress. Decrease of Vairagya Vidya Bhakti is called regress, spiritual regress. We can progress, we can regress also. We commit offenses, we regress. We commit sinful activities, we regress. Yes, when we engage in Krishna consciousness properly, then Krishna starts taking care of us immediately. He guides us. He makes us understand what we should do, what we should not do. We come across this. But there is a term and condition attached to it. You have to be interested in pure devotional service to Krishna. Only then Krishna will personally take charge. Otherwise, he will take charge through others. She might even empower Maya Devi to give us a little bit of trouble so that we can come to the point of pure devotional service. That may happen. Okay, let's go on to introduction. Okay, this is the standard Mangalacharan, Prabhupada giving Sutta Mangalacharan. And then he says this. First of all, he begins with this point that there's a reason for why he has come up with an English edition of Bhagavad Gita. Of course, in America, there are so many editions of Bhagavad Gita available in English. But as far as I have seen, not only in America, but also in India, none of them can be strictly said to be authoritative, because in almost every one of them, the commentator has expressed his own opinions without touching the spirit of Bhagavad Gita as it is. The spirit of Bhagavad Gita. That is a very important concept. That the Gita itself has a particular idea. It is just like this. If we want to take a particular medicine, then we have to follow the directions written on the label. We cannot take the medicine according to our own whim or the direction of a friend. It must be taken according to the directions on the label or the directions given by a physician. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita should be taken or accepted as it is directed by the speaker himself. The speaker of Bhagavad Gita is Lord Shri Krishna. He's mentioned on every page of Bhagavad Gita as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Of course, the word Bhagavan sometimes refers to any powerful person or any powerful demigod. And certainly here, Bhagavan designates Lord Shri Krishna as a great personality. But at the same time, we should know that Lord Shri Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, as is confirmed by all great acharyas, spiritual masters like Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Dvarkaswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and many other authorities of Vedic knowledge in India. The Lord himself also establishes himself as the supreme personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita, and he is accepted as such in the Brahma Samhita and all the Puranas, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam known as the Bhagavata Purana, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Therefore, we should take Bhagavad Gita as it is directed by the personality of Godhead himself. So the idea is that, first of all, one should accept Krishna as the highest authority. That Krishna is the highest authority is one of the important teachings of Bhagavad Gita itself. Now you may wonder why is Prabhupada stressing this so much. But in general, if you open any modern translation of Bhagavad Gita, one thing you will find is those people never take Krishna seriously. Even now, simply don't take him seriously. They consider that Krishna is just some kind of mouthpiece. Mahabharata itself, I think, is more or less a fiction. It's just some story. You'll find in modern world they don't say story. They use expressions like narrative. This is a very interesting narrative. So if you learn the dialect of academic English, then you can translate it into modern English. And you understand what they mean is that this is a very interesting story. Fiction, false story. But Prabhupada points out that no, that's not how we understand. We understand Bhagavad Gita correctly, as it was intended. This is the point. As it was intended. Therefore, we should take Bhagavad Gita as it is directed by the personality of God himself. Now, just like when we take a medicine, we have to follow the directions on the label of that medicine. So then, if Bhagavad Gita is comparable to a medicine, then where is the label and what does the label say? That question will arise. Anticipating that, Prabhupada he refers to the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita and 3 verses. He points out that label. Yogam Pratavan Hamagayam, Vaswan Mahayapraham, Manavishwakta Vedravit. Evam Parampara Praptam, Yom Rajashyo Vidatu, Sakalene Ham Hata, Yogo Nashta Parantapa. Saevayam Mayatevya Yoga Prapta Ratanaham. Bhakto Sime Sakacheti Rakasyam Cheta Uttava. Can someone read these translations from the text? Inside the text. In the 4th chapter, you'll find 4.123. Only the English translation. Somebody can please read it.
4.1. The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna said, I instructed this to restore science of yoga to the sun god, Vaswan. And Vaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaka. Text 2. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of the succession, and the sanctity king understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science had to be revealed to the law. That variance in science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this.
Okay. So, Prabhupada here, back in the introduction, Prabhupada is focusing on Bhaktos being Sakacheti. I am speaking this exalted mystery to you because you are my devotee and you are my friend. And then Prabhupada points out that there are 3 classes of transcendentalists: the Jnani, the Yogi, and the Bhakta. This requires some clarification. Um, If I have to use that board, then these devotees won't be able to see. This is going to be an issue for me. Can I just, I can't use this webcam. Can I just move it so that they can see it? Then what I should do? I should turn off the screen share.
No, that we are seeing on the video.
Well, they're seeing me, but then I want to see. Okay. Now they can see this. It's not so clear. So. Okay, anyway, what to do? Oh, we'll put here.
When you let them connect.
Each and every time. Yeah.
Are you connected? Then they're setting up. You can have it.
Okay, next session we will do. Break time will set it up. Okay. See, there are different levels of practitioners. And there are different goals also. How do I explain it? Let me explain it in Excel sheet itself. First of all, there are different goals. And then there are different means. So let's start with a very low class goal. Arthakama, which means money and sense enjoyment. And what is the means for that? Plain old adharma. You engage in adharmic activities, you can get artha and kama. Then there is another goal called dharma, piety, sukriti. Sukriti is also some kind of currency, actually. You earn it. You earn it, you can spend it, you can transfer it, you can receive it, you can store it. It is the only currency that can be transferred over lifetimes. In this lifetime, let us say I earn $10,000. In my next lifetime, I cannot go to the bank and say that last life I deposited it, so this life I wanted, please allow me. Gone. You cannot transfer. But sukriti or dharma, piety, pious credits, that will continue in your next life. So therefore, in Vedic civilization, at the first status, we saw Karma Kanda, no? In Karma Kanda, they are actually teaching us how to engage in the activities of karma. Okay, for karma. Okay, let me just keep it simple. Karma. You engage in the activities of the Varnashram Dharma system. You engage in various material pious activities. Then you earn sukriti. Okay, so that is called dharma. Now that in the next lifetime will fructify in the form of arthakama. But it will give you deluxe arthakama. It won't just give you ordinary, enhanced arthakama you get. So therefore, the Vedic system is, what is this, if you engage in adharmic activity, okay, you enjoy some sense enjoyment, but what little sense enjoyment only you can get. As a human being, what you can enjoy. You perform pious activities, you go to holy planets and enjoy for long periods. Enjoy for 10,000 years. Enjoy with some 25 girls. You're all young, long youth. Not that in the world of human beings, that too in Kali Yuga, youth is very short. From the age of 15 to hair turns white. That is the official end point of youth. So say 15 to 40. 15 to 40. So that is what 25 years of youth. Only 25 years of youth. Not that much. But in the heavenly planets, it's not like that. Youth is the major period of their life. Just like in the human world, childhood is very short. Old age seems to be considerably long. From the age of 40, after you die, let's say you die when you are 80, so 40 years of old age. Whereas in the heavenly planets, old age and all is very, very time. Almost non-existent. But it's youth, which is majority. So if you meet Lord Indra, he's young. He's thousands of years young. And his mother, she's also even more thousands of years young. His wife is also thousands of years young. And his daughter-in-law is also thousands of years young. Everybody is young. Some may be more young, some may be less young. That's all. But so the Vedas, they initially they say, just engage in karma. Karma, you will come across this word many, many times. Karma refers to these material duties. Then, so the basic idea is avoid adharma, engage in these duties. Now, there's nothing wrong with these material duties. Karma refers to, in fact, what we call swadharma. Every man and every woman has a material duty. The duty of a woman is known as Stri Dharma. The duty of a man, Purusha Dharma, is divided into two, Varna Dharma and Ashrama Dharma. Every man who accepts Vedic Dharma, he has a Varna identity and Ashrama identity. That's a little complicated. We'll come across it later on. I'll explain it. So generally, people engage in their material duties to attain dharma, to attain pious credits, in order in the next life to enjoy arthakama. So that's another distinction. In the platform of adharma, they want to enjoy in that very life. Whereas on the platform of karma, they're thinking of next life. So in Vedic civilization, you're always thinking of next life. That is a very important point. This life is a preparation for the next life. It's a very, very important point. Okay. So karma, then you have jnana. Jnana is a method by which one can attain moksha. And yoga, and then you have bhakti. Now, the goal of jnana is moksha with Brahman realization. The goal of the yoga system is moksha with Paramatma realization. The goal of bhakti is called prema, is prema, love of God, loving service to the Lord, which corresponds to Bhagavan realization. Okay. So these are the respective goals and these are the respective means. Now for everything that I'm showing here, the focus is on the next life. Whereas in adharma, the focus is this life. Now in this, these two are considered materialistic. The first platform is just gross materialistic. Second platform is subtle materialism. In fact, in the second platform, they very well know about the soul and reincarnation. They know that we are spirit souls and that we reincarnate. Then why they want to enjoy? They want to enjoy just like people nowadays, they keep on buying new mobile phones and enjoying them. They know they are not the phone. They repeatedly keep on buying new phones and enjoying. So like that, they understand I'm not my gross body. Okay, but it's nice. Nice. It's a nice instrument to enjoy. You do pious activities, you become a demigod. You do even more pious activities, you become a superior demigod. Between the demigods also there is various levels. The higher demigods can appear and disappear in front of the lower demigods. So it is, each of them is more high-tech than the other. So they have more and more powers. So that is all within this platform of piety. Highest is the position of Brahma. Highest is the position of Brahma as far as material enjoyment goes. Okay. So these two are considered materialistic. Then what about these three? These three are considered spiritual. So these are called transcendentalists. Paramarthika. These are all spiritual. So there are three classes of transcendentalists: the Jnani, the Yogi, and the Bhakta. One who engages in Jnana is called Jnani. One who engages in Yoga is called Yogi. One who engages in Bhakti is called a Bhakta. So here Lord Krishna is specifically pointing out that Arjuna is a Bhakta. He is engaged in this activity which leads to this goal. So that is one reason why Krishna chose Arjuna. Second reason, that Sakhacheti, you are my friend. So now only those who engage in bhakti and who attain the perfection of bhakti can actually be fixed as Krishna's dasas, servants, friends, parent figures, or his wives, like that. So not only he was a devotee, he was a perfect devotee. There are three statuses. There is devotee, there's pure devotee, and there's perfect pure devotee. So he was a perfect pure devotee. So because he was a devotee, and on top of it, a perfect pure devotee, therefore Krishna is speaking it to him. So the idea is only one who is a perfect pure devotee of Krishna can actually understand Bhagavad Gita. Next point. How does a perfect pure devotee understand Bhagavad Gita? And for that purpose, then he points out how Arjuna accepted this Bhagavad Gita should be noted. His manner of acceptance is given in the 10th chapter. Arjuna said, "You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest." All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. Oh Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. So you notice this? So this is exactly how a perfect pure devotee of Krishna understands Krishna. Yes. A pure devotee is one who is engaged in pure sadhana bhakti. Pure sadhana bhakti will lead to pure bhava bhakti, which will lead to pure prema bhakti. So a perfect pure devotee is comparable to a ripe mango. A pure devotee who is on the platform of sadhana bhakti is comparable to a green mango. So if we are there are some other considerations also. There's a devotee, that's a bhakta. Then there is a sadhana bhakta, then there is a pure sadhana bhakta and a perfect pure sadhana. Everybody engaged in the routine activities of devotee service is not necessarily engaged in sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means I want to attain prema bhakti. I may be engaged in the activities of bhakti. For instance, I may be engaged in the activities of bhakti, okay? But in my next life, I want to go to the heavenly planets. So I'm not, that is not sadhana bhakti. That is bhakti. That's accepted as Vishnu bhakti. That's fine. But these people are not considered bhakti yogas. Because in bhakti yoga, you have to engage in the means of bhakti to attain the prescribed goal of bhakti. Every activity has a prescribed goal. The prescribed goal for bhakti is prema bhakti. Of course, if you engage in bhakti, even with the lower goal, you will attain it. We know that. We know that. But that is not just like an airplane. With an airplane, you can fly. You can also use an airplane to go in the road. We know that, but nobody does that. So like that,
Can you say that pure devotee is those who follow the verse and the other
that is the same thing. Pure devotee and not the perfect pure devotee. No.
Just pure devotee, not perfect. One who follows
Anyabhilashita Shunyam is a big circle. It is pure devotional service that is applicable for sadhana, bhava, and prema. But perfect pure devotee is a specific subset within that. It's a specific subset within that. But when I'm talking about devotee, pure devotee, perfect pure devotee, actually what I'm talking about is impure devotee, imperfect pure devotee, perfect pure devotee. As three distinct groups. Anyabhilashita Shunyam verse, it refers to Shuddha Bhakti at all three stages. It is common. It has the common features that are found in all the three stages. Okay. So this is the understanding of a perfect pure devotee. A perfect pure devotee is not an unintelligent sentimentalist. He is actually a very intelligent person. He understands. See, like Arjuna, he understands. After we read Bhagavad Gita up to 10.11, will we come to this conclusion? We will not come to this conclusion. We can also open Bhagavad Gita and read from 2.11 all the way to 10.11. But we don't come to that conclusion. No, but Arjuna has come to this conclusion. Correct conclusion. He is also saying, not only I am coming to this conclusion, Ahustvam Rishaya Sarve. All the rishis say this. All the rishis say this. So, this is the spirit. This is the particular spirit with which we have to understand Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita should be taken up in a spirit of devotion. One should not think that he is equal to Krishna, nor should he think that Krishna is an ordinary personality or even a very great personality. So, the spirit of devotion also means that we should not think we are equal to Krishna. We should not think that we can become Krishna. We should not think that Krishna is an ordinary person or a very great person and so on. He is the supreme personality of Godhead. According to the statements of Bhagavad Gita or the statements of Arjuna, the person who is trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita, we should at least theoretically, typing mistake, accept Shri Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, and with that submissive spirit, we can understand the Bhagavad Gita. Unless one reads the Bhagavad Gita in a submissive spirit, it's very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita because it is a great mystery. Okay, at this point, I would like to turn to okay. I will not have time to extensively go through Varaja Bhushan's commentary in full detail, but certain bits and pieces I will bring it out. Okay, so he after his Mangalacharana, he notes he notes that Lord Shri Krishna is a concentrated form of transcendental bliss and knowledge. He is Swayam Bhagavan. He possesses inconceivable potencies. He is the supreme person, Purushottama. He has brought about the creation, maintenance, dissolution of variegated universes, all simply by just desiring. His lotus feet is meditated upon by Brahma, Shiva, and the other demigods. He has appeared in this world along with his associates, whom he has kindly brought about as his equals. He engages in he wanted to somehow or other attract the living entities. Internet connection is unstable. Sorry about that. So he wanted to attract the living entities. He wanted to save the living entities who were in the mouths of the tigress known as avidya or Maya. So he wanted to rescue them. And after he would disappear from this world, what would happen to these living entities? He was thinking about them. He wanted to deliver the souls who would be born after his disappearance also. So with that in mind, before the beginning of his war, he purposefully made Arjuna apparently deluded by his inconceivable potencies. And on the pretext of removing that, so-called delusion, Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita Upanishad. The Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, it presents in detail information about Krishna's true nature and his energies with which he operates. Okay, we'll get back to you. Just what is the Bhagavad Gita? The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from the meshes of material existence. Every man is in difficulty in so many ways, as Arjuna also was in difficulty in having to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjuna surrendered unto Sri Krishna, and consequently this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Not only Arjuna, but every one of us is full of anxieties because of this material existence. Our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. That means we are eternal, but we are always subjected to some experience which gives us the impression that we are not eternal. We are all forcibly made to identify with what we see in the mirror. We see in the mirror our gross body. And Maya Devi's business is to make us identify with that. In the dream, we identify with our subtle body. But in the wakeful state, Jagrata Avastha, we identify with the gross body. The gross body will certainly die. And after we die, we come back again with a different name, different form, different memory. Not always different desires. Desires alone continue. Karmic reactions continue. Unless the karmic reactions are exhausted. I commit a sinful activity, the karmic reaction in the form of punishment is attached to my account. Until that punishment is experienced fully, then do not go. Madhvacharya explains that every human being, male or female, from the age of 14, when he engages in any materialistic activity, will accumulate karmic reactions for minimum 10 lifetimes. So it is some kind of bumper binding. I used to think it was 1:1. If we do one activity, then next lifetime we are booked. But if we are booked for 10 lifetimes at least. So it's very, very complicated. Very complicated. Getting stuck with these karmic reactions is a big misery. So we are always threatened by non-eternity. We are threatened by death. We know from Bhagavatam also we know that the soul does not die at all. But the soul is repeatedly, the soul that has turned away from Krishna is covered by a subtle body and then by a gross body. And then is given fear. We are made to experience fear, shoka, moha, bhaya. These are standard features of material existence. Strictly speaking, this world is a prison house, but in this prison house, we are psychologically punished. It's not really a physical punishment. It's more of a psychological punishment. Imagine if somebody commits a crime and the punishment for that person is you put him inside a horror movie theater alone. This is a psychological punishment. It's alone in a movie theater watching some ghosts. Some 3D movie also. So nobody's actually beating him, nothing. It's just psychological. So it is something like a psychological punishment we are getting. So actually, we are not meant to be threatened by non-existence or existence of the eternal, but somehow or other we are put into asat. Asat refers to that which does not exist. Out of so many human beings who are suffering, there are a few who are actually inquiring about their position as to what they are, why they are put into this awkward position, and so on. Unless one is awakened to this position of questioning his suffering, unless he realizes that he doesn't want suffering, but rather wants to make a solution to all suffering, then he is not to be considered a perfect human being. Humanity begins when this sort of inquiry is awakened in one's mind. In the Brahma Sutra, this inquiry is called Brahma Jigyasa. Brahma Jigyasa. Every activity of the human being is to be considered a failure unless he inquires about the nature of the absolute. That is an English translation of something that comes in the 5th canto of Bhagavad. Unless one inquires about the Supreme Atma, the Supreme Soul, every activity is considered a failure. Therefore, those who begin to question why they are suffering or where they came from and where they should go after death are proper students for understanding Bhagavad Gita. The sincere student should also have a firm respect for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a student was Arjuna. So, Lord Krishna made Arjuna come to that point. Okay. Okay, I want someone to read out from this. No, not yet. Next session. Lord Krishna descends specifically to re-establish the real purpose of life when man forgets that purpose. Even then, out of many human beings who awaken, there may be one who actually enters the spirit of understanding his position. The spirit of understanding his position means becoming philosophical and trying to understand. So what am I doing in life? What is all this? Actually, it is not very surprising. Suppose you go to sleep and then with great difficulty you wake up with your eyes very tired and you are in some dark room and your hands are tied. Your head is also, you're not allowed to see anything. So naturally, you'll want to know why it is like this. So similarly, if you carefully think about it, after we take birth, initially we are just going through the bodily instinct. We are hungry, we are this and that. Then at a certain point, we begin to understand there is a whole world. Initially, we only understand our caretakers, those who take care of us, those who provide our needs and so on. But at some point, then we begin to understand there's a whole world. So naturally speaking, that the human being will want to understand what is going on, why I cannot do this, why I cannot do that, because we experience nothing but limitations. The things that we want, we don't get. We don't get them to the extent that we want. We don't get them in a continuous manner that we want. We are filled with various limitations. So I don't want to go to sleep at night, but I have to sleep. I like this particular food stuff. I want to go on eating, but I'm not able to. So we experience limitations all the time. We are subjected to undesirable experiences. Naturally, we will want to know what is going on. So it is not surprising if we come up with those questions. But when people don't understand something, I think it is just the bodily instinct which makes them think that don't ask all these questions. Just be normal. Just be like us. We are so happy in ignorance. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto, there is a section called the Puranjana Upakhyan. So it's a series of chapters that deal with something called Puranjana. that talks about the soul actually through an allegory. Talks about the soul, and it compares the Jivatma in this world to a man named Puranjan. And his materialistic intelligence is compared to a very beautiful woman named Puranjani. So there's one place where Puranjana asks Puranjani, so who are you, where are you? And she very happily says, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know from when I've been here. I don't know how long we'll be here. Oh, let's enjoy. And that's all. So, Shukadeva Goswami wants to convey that this is actually how the material intelligence tells the soul. When the soul wants to understand what is the nature of this world, material intelligence simply says, no, don't think about all this. I don't know, that's all. I don't know. I don't know. And you ask around, these people also don't know. And they're not bothered also. Just enjoy. That's all. So these kind of people who are overcome by materialistic intelligence, they are not the target audience for Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is targeted for a minority audience. We should first of all be clear about this. The entire Vedic civilization is interested in the more intelligent minority and not the less intelligent majority. If you are interested in satisfying the majority, you cannot make spiritual progress. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhi. Amongst thousands, very few people endeavor. Tatamapi siddhanam kaschid mameti tattva. Amongst thousands who endeavor, one may attain perfection. Amongst thousands who attain perfection, hardly one understands Krishna's nature. So it is always minority, 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 minority. It's a pyramid always. So even though Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita in public, it is actually meant for a small audience. Which audience? First of all, they should be interested in Brahma Jigyasa. Amongst those interested in Brahma Jigyasa, how many of them accept that Bhagavad Gita is the ultimate explanation of the four Vedas? So they need to accept that also. So they need to be interested in Brahma Jigyasa, and they need to accept the spirit with which you understand Bhagavad Gita. So it is for this person that Bhagavad Gita is being spoken. We should not become confused then why Krishna is speaking this in public. Sometimes public announcements are meant for specific minority audience also. It's like, for instance, Mayapur itself. After the Mangalarati, you will find some announcement. Those of you who have booked for the Ekachakra trip, please be outside the BVT gate on the right side. Bring your coupon with you for identification. Now there are 6,000 devotees in Maya, and festival time there is double, 12,000. It's not for all the 12,000. It's only meant for some 40 or 50 devotees who have paid for their Ekachakra trip. It is a specific announcement for a specific audience in public. So like that, Bhagavad Gita, it is actually spoken for this specific audience. It is meant for this particular target group only. The others should not be, or rather be unnecessarily harassing this other group. We can try to make them qualified to understand. But other than that, we won't be able to do much about it. Therefore, those who begin to question why they are suffering, or where they came from, and where they shall go after death are proper students for understanding Bhagavad Gita. The sincere student should also have a firm respect for the Supreme Personality of God. Such a student was Arjuna. Okay, any questions? See, we cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. We cannot claim to be a devotee of Krishna if we think that we are equal to Krishna. We are as good as Krishna. We can become Krishna, and so on. Because devotional service itself means that we are his servant. Servant is a word that is very uncomfortable in many languages. In today's world, we don't use the word. In a number of countries in the West, servitude itself has been abolished. Do you have servants in Russia? Or it's used to? Yes. In India, it's very common. Servants and maid servants and all this. And I remember there was one Australian devotee who said that the French Revolution destroyed it in Europe. Before that, we can say some kind of distorted chaturvarnya existed. You had priests, you had kings, royalty, you had the business community, and you had servants. And it was a very dignified job. Even then, I did some inquiries. I said, but then how don't you have drivers? He said, yeah, we have drivers, but we don't officially we don't communicate with them as if they are inferior. We give them the impression that they are great souls. There are cooks. In some countries, you can have a servant if you are as rich as Ambarish Prabhu. Only then they will agree to it. But in some other countries, like in India, servant is not. In the Middle East, it's all quite acceptable to have servants. So the very concept of a servant itself requires a lot of humility, and the language associated with it also. If you're going to use it, if you say that I'm a servant of Krishna, you're a servant of Krishna, people don't want to hear I'm a servant of Krishna. So we abolished it 400 years back. Maybe you bring back servant, but part of our preaching is to get people used to the standard language of the eternal scriptures. We don't change the language. Rather, we help people understand the intended meaning of scripture. The servitude that is discussed in Vedic civilization, it involves two things. In Vedic Dharma, a man has to fulfill the needs of his servant. That is his duty. That is called Vatsalya. His affection for the servant. You are meant to have affection for servant. You are not meant to exploit the servant. They are like children. And the servant's duty is to carry out the instructions of the master and do everything required for the purpose of the master. So everything was well defined. And even between Lord Krishna and the living entities, even in a place like Vaikuntha, where Krishna is in his Aishwarya form, Narayana, and the living entities are his servants. Lord Narayana is always described in the Pancharattika scriptures. There's a lot of discussion about Lord Narayana. He's always described as constantly thinking about the welfare of his servants. So they are servants, but he's always thinking about their welfare. So it is some good master-servant relationship, which you may come across in some old black and white movie. But it is nice. There is something called the master-servant relationship, which is not exploitative. So when we take to devotional service, we have to accept this basic position of servitude. We have to accept that. When we present Krishna consciousness, if we honestly carry out Krishna's instructions under the guidance of the spiritual masters and other Vaishnavas, then gradually we begin to understand and we become qualified to help others understand. In particular places or in particular audiences, they may not understand particular things because of their life experience, but it is our duty to help them understand. There may be persons, for instance, who don't like the idea that Krishna is my father. I know one devotee who always would get irritated when we would say that Krishna is the father of everyone. Aham, what is that verse? Aham Vgp Bsd Bg. Really angry. No, Krishna is not my father. Krishna is my friend. He's my caretaker. He's affectionate. He's not my father. I said, what's your problem? He said, my father never loved me. Okay, I'm sorry, but I cannot change whole Bhagavad Gita. A text just for you. Because he had a problem. He had a problem. He had a problem. The person had a problem. And there are devotees who say that they had problems with their mothers. Because abortion is very common nowadays. And number of times abortion is unsuccessful. And then later on, after 15, 20 years, somebody tells, actually, your mother tried to kill you and you are an accident. So then they become very disturbed. So if you have to tell these people that you have to respect all women as a mother, then they become very annoyed. Oh, but what does that mean? Why should I? First of all, I don't even respect my own mother, biological mother. Why should I respect this lady as a mother? So it takes some time. We need to make people understand gradually. As we increase the satoguna in our body and mind, then it becomes easier and easier to follow. Take some time. Okay, we'll take a break now. After 15 minutes, we'll reassemble. We will start with Baladevi Bsd commentary. Bhaktivinoda's commentary. Or do we start the room? Can I not pause it or something? There's no pause. I pause the recording. Where? I'm just going to pause the recording. I'm too lazy to. Okay, let's resume. Well, Lord Krishna descends specifically to re-establish the real purpose of life when man forgets that purpose. Even then, out of many, many human beings who awaken, there may be one who actually enters the spirit of understanding his position. And for him, this Bhagavad Gita is spoken. Actually, we are all swallowed by the tigress of nescience. Nescience means ignorance. But the Lord is very merciful upon living entities, especially human beings. To this end, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, making his friend Arjuna his student. Being an associate of Lord Krishna, Arjuna was above all ignorance, but Arjuna was put into ignorance on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, just to question Lord Krishna about the problems of life, so that the Lord could explain them for the benefit of future generations of human beings and chalk out the plan of life. Then man could act accordingly and perfect the mission of human life. So you can see that this is directly paraphrase. This directly paraphrases what Baladevi Bsd wrote. Tasyam khulvi Ishvara Jiva Prakriti Kala Karmani Panchartha Varnyante. So in Bhagavad Gita, 5 subject matters are discussed. Ishvara Jiva Prakriti Kala Karma. When we use the board. Somebody has to go on in live for this. Ishvara. Jiva. So, 5. So 5. These are the 5. Technically, in philosophy, we refer to them as dravya, substances. What is the substance? In one of the Vaishnava Sampradayas, they define what a dravya or a substance is in the philosophical sense. The substance is that which has several different states. And there is a simple example that's given. consider the as a ocean. We have an ocean, samudra, sagar, ocean. And the ocean contains waves. The ocean contains actually water. Water is a substance. And when we have large amount of water, we give it the name ocean. When you say the ocean contains waves, a wave is only a state, avastha. When you have water moving in a particular shape, then that state is what we call a wave. A wave is not a substance. Water is the substance. But still we talk as if waves are substances. We say the wave is moving very fast. Okay, suppose you say take a football and throw it. The football is a substance. A football moving and a wave moving, we talk as if they are the same thing. But actually a wave is not even a substance. It is only a state of water. So you should understand that the ocean of water is a dravya, it's a substance. And water is a state, avastha. So this question often comes up in question of philosophy. What is the dravya? What actually exists? And what are all states? In philosophy, in Western philosophy also they try to understand this. And in Vedanta philosophy also they try to understand this. So in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we say there are 5 substances. Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kama, Karma. These are 5 substances. We talk about the 3 modes of nature. But the modes of nature are actually properties of nature. A guna is like a wave. It is not a substance or a dravya. It is a state. That's all. So now, these 5 subject matters that are coming down, they have their similarities and they have their dissimilarities, which we are going to see right now. Teshu Vibhu Samvid Ishvaraha. Would it be useful if I show you the Latin transcript or Roman transliteration of this? Most of you may not know the Bengali script. Okay. Teshu Vibhu Samvid Ishvaraha. Samvid means consciousness. Vibhu means all pervasive. All pervasive means unlimited. So the unlimited consciousness is called Ishvara. Anu Samvid Jivaha. Anu Samvid. Anu means small, atomic, as small as possible. In English, we have a word, infinite, and we have the opposite of that is called infinitesimal. It means the smallest thing. That's called infinitesimal. It is infinitesimal in the smallest sense. And then infinite means largest, that which has no limit in its size. So Vibhu Samvid means the unlimited consciousness, all-pervading consciousness. Anu Samvid means the atomic consciousness. So the atomic consciousness is called the Jiva. Satvadi guna trayashraya dravyam prakriti. And prakriti is the substance that is the shelter of Satvaguna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. Traigunya Shunyam Jada Dravyam Kalaha. And Kala is another Dravya substance. It is also Jada. Jada means that which is not conscious. But it is Traigunya Shunyam. It is free from the three modes of nature. So it is material, but it does not have the three modes of material nature as its property. And then there is karma, which refers to karmic reactions. Karmic reaction is another substance. Just like in today's world, when you get sick, they the doctor may say, this is because of this virus or that virus. That is understood that your sickness has a particular cause. Similarly, my material experiences may be desirable or undesirable. When they are desirable, then we say that I'm happy. When it is undesirable, then you say that I'm unhappy. Okay. So this is what is known as the material experience of happiness or the material experience of unhappiness. And they are traced to this cause called karmic reaction. Every endeavor of a human being will result in a particular reaction. So I have to engage in a particular activity in order to achieve something. But that activity will also produce some result. So we will see this in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What is karma? Lord Krishna will point out that karma is ultimately that which causes us to take another material body. So anything which causes us to take another material body comes under the category of karma, ultimately speaking. Just as when you carry out the injunctions of the Veda, you are said to be engaged in dharma. But when you do that with a materialistic spirit, then what are you aiming at? You are aiming at pious activities, pious credits, sorry. Okay. Pious credits are also called dharma. So you have dharma as the means which leads to dharma as the goal. Or even in devotional service, we say we are engaged in bhakti. In order to engage in bhakti, we engage in sadhana bhakti. In order to engage in bhava bhakti, then from that we want to come to the point of prema bhakti. So bhakti is the means, bhakti is the goal. The same way, pious activities is the means, karma. So sometimes the word karma refers to pious activity. But the result of that is attainment of sukriti. Sukriti is also called karma. Auspicious or materially desirable karmic reaction is also called karma. So karma is also referring to a particular, you get something. The living entity after I die, I will be transferred to another place with my subtle body and my karma. So karma is something which needs to be experienced. The standard example that comes is when you release when you aim at something with an arrow, and you release it, the arrow will go until it hits the target. Similarly, if I engage in a pious activity or a sinful activity, it will naturally lead to its result. So suppose I some XYZ, murder someone. Okay. Now that activity of murdering is definitely going to produce something called a result. Now you may say murder itself is the result. No, murder is not the result. Based on that, you are going to get a reaction back. That is the result. It's like if I take a ball, this example came from Gopi. You throw it on the wall. It hits the wall, then it comes back and hits you. So all activities which are not transcendental. Transcendental means you are aiming at least at moksha, if not prema bhakti. Anything apart from that is material. Dharma or artha or karma. If you are aiming at pious credits or wealth or sense enjoyment. It is material automatic. So when I engage in any material activity, that ball may hit the wall, but that is not the end of the story. Further, it will come back and hit me. So when I engage in pious activity, let us say somebody is on the road and that person happens to be a sinless person. Let us say he's a materialistic person, but at least he's not committing sinful activity. And he is very thirsty. So I go and give him water. Now I've engaged in one activity. Immediately the reaction for that has to come back to me. So that reaction, typically karmic reactions take at least one lifetime to fructify. But if you engage in an extreme sinful activity, then the reactions will fructify in this lifetime. Similarly, when you engage in ordinary material pious activities, you get the result next lifetime, at least next lifetime. But if it is some exalted activity, like we engage in devotion service to Krishna, this is the best of Vedic Dharma. So the result will come immediately. That too, pure bhakti we engage, pure sadhana bhakti, immediately you get it. Immediately you get. Immediate means in this very lifetime you experience the result. But other than that, it goes into a queue. It's a queue system. So I may engage in some combination of pious activities and sinful activities. So then it goes into a queue. All of that will fructify over lifetimes. So just as if I release the arrow, and after I release the arrow, I say, no, but I want to stop it. You cannot stop it. You released it, gone. So like that, I engage in a sinful activity, that reaction has to come to me. Only one reaction, only one exception is that. We will come across it later on. In general, everybody has to experience these karmic reactions. Even if I'm involved in the activities of Hari Bhakti, I have to experience my karmic reactions. Unless if the karmic reactions are unfavorable for my spiritual progress, that's a different thing. But most of the time, karmic reactions, that to the miserable type, is very useful for spiritual progress because it is helpful for Vairagya, Vidya, Bhakti. So, generally, but for instance, let us say I have unnecessarily made people very sick. Then I'm supposed to be sick for 75% of my life for 10 lifetimes. And in one of these lifetimes, somehow I went to some Sunday program and started chanting Hare Krishna and serving devotees and developed the desire to become a pure devotee and so on. Then Krishna may reduce that because now there's possibility that you're even aiming at the highest goal, not even liberation, beyond liberation. So naturally, Krishna will move away karmic reactions which are unfavorable for a proper goal. It's a goal which is good for ourselves and everyone. But other than that, karmic reactions are generally expected. Don't be surprised when you experience some karmic reaction and think that I'm a devotee, what happened to me? That there's one type of devotee that we'll read about who will not experience karmic reactions. When we become that, then afterwards we'll be saved. Tesham lakshanani, their characteristics. Eshu Ishwaradini Chatvari Nityani. The first four, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, they are Nitya, they are eternal. Jivadini to Ishvara Vashyani. Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, they are under the control of Ishvara. Karma also, it's under the control of Ishvara. Karma to Praga Bhavavad Anadi Vinashicha. Karma does not have existence previously. It has no beginning, but it is subject to destruction. It can be destroyed. Tatra Samvit Swarupopi Ishvaraha Jivasya Samvita Asmadaptascha. Even though the Supreme Lord is consciousness, unlimited consciousness, he is also conscious. He is conscious and his consciousness. Similarly, the Jiva also is limited consciousness or atomic consciousness, but is also atomic conscious. And both of them have asmadartha, both of them have a sense of self-awareness. This cup is not aware that I'm holding it. So it has no self-awareness. But I have a sense that I exist. This tumbler does not have a sense that it exists. So that's called asmadartha. And he quotes from the Shruti. And then he points out, Nacha Ubhayatra Mahatatvajataya Ahankara Tasya Tada Tasya Anupattir Vilimukta. And that sense of self-awareness, that is not material. That is because in the scriptural Shruti text itself, it says, So Kamayata, the Supreme Lord, he desired at the time of creation, Bahusyam, oh, I'd like to become many. And that is how then he injects all the living entities into Prakriti, and that is how creation takes place. We know this from the Upanishads. So Baladeva Bhushan is noting that at that particular point in time, false ego was not even manifested. So there is something called false ego in creation. It is something like a software which makes you think that I am the gross body. It is that kind of artificial intelligence. I don't know what to call it. That kind of software which makes you think that you are the subtle body and not the gross body. Two types of effects it has. So at that point in time in creation, false ego is not even created. False ego is not created, and the Supreme Lord is already thinking, I am alone. I should become many. I should become many. So that means there is a sense of I. The Supreme Lord is thinking of I. Or about the living entity. So that is an example of how the Supreme Lord has a sense about himself. And that is not caused by matter. Regarding the living entity, Baladeva will use another example. We are in wakeful state now. And then at another point, we will fall asleep. And when we fall asleep, we experience dreams. There are three states of existence. That the condition sounds motive. Jagrata, wakeful state, Jagrata Avastha. Swapna, dream state. Sushupti, good sleep, literally, it means deep sleep. Deep sleep, it means dreamless sleep. So all conditioned souls come in the snap of this. So these stages that all conditioned souls we all experience. Okay. Wakeful state, dream state, dreamless dream state. So we go through dream, we come to deep sleep, and then we come back to the wakeful state. When we come back to the wakeful state, then we remember, oh, I slept very nicely. Sometimes we even remember that we slept so nicely, and that pleasure was not the pleasure that we experience inside a dream. We also recognize that there is a dreamless pleasure. It's a pleasure that we also, when we have a good dream, instead of we are happy, let's say we eat a lot, I don't know what, then we are happy. But that pleasure we distinctly recognize. It's a pleasure coming out of a dream. But we also have the experience of pleasures that do not come out of dreams. Dreamless pleasure during sleep. So Sri Baladeva Bhushan says it's a matter of common recognition. Sukhamaham aswapsam kinchid application. At that time, I was not conscious of anything in particular. So this is a matter of common experience, actually. Okay. So in that state also, we notice that the false ego is not acting, because if the false ego acts in the wakeful state and in the state of dream. At the time of deep sleep, you don't experience anything through the subtle body or the gross body. No? At the time of dreaming, we don't experience anything through the gross body, definitely. Because this eye is closed and still inside a dream, we are seeing so many things. So that means definitely it is not in connection with the physical body. But in deep sleep, we experience happiness. That happiness is not because of the subtle body. Because then the dream itself is stopped. No. It is a dreamless state. And still I'm happy. So based on this, Baladev says that for the Jivatma also, his sense of I exist or I experience happiness, that is actually a spiritual sense. It is not material. He has to say that because the Mayavadis millions of times go on saying that you are thinking like that because you are under Maya. Okay, so that's an important point. Such a karta bhokta siddha. It is also established in the Vedic scriptures that both of them, both the Jivatma and the Paramatma, they are responsible agents. They are karta in the sense of they are individuals who do things and then who are held responsible for it. That's called the karta. Responsible agency. This is important because if you don't understand who is responsible, then you will immediately say that you are rewarding someone who should not be rewarded, or you are punishing someone who should not be punished. So the living entity and the Supreme Lord, both of them are responsible agents. And both of them are experiencers. They are capable of experiencing different things. Yadyapi samvit swarupa samvitrtvadi nanyat prakasha swarupad raveriva prakashatvadi tathapi vishesha samatyat tadanyatva vyavahara. Just like the sun is the source of light, and the sun is also made up of light. So like that, Ishvara and the Jivas, they are consciousness and conscious. They are consciousness and conscious. The consciousness simply means that they are spiritual, fully spiritual. Commonly, we use the expression Satchidananda. Sat means eternal. Chit means knowledge and spiritual. Ananda means blissful. Okay. So here he is just pointing out that feature of Chit. Okay, any questions so far? I want someone now to read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary.
What saying you know is annual like what is annual year was they could read previously. So where is it being to different water? In my life there is something. And they need to know this.
No. Baladevi Devbhushana is pointing out that the sense of self-awareness of Ishvara and the Jiva is not material. Okay, the Mayavadis always say that the Brahman has no sense of self-awareness. Okay, but the Vaishnavas always say, no, Ishvara has a sense of self-awareness. The Jiva also has a sense of self-awareness. All the four groups, all the four Vaishnava lines, they say that. And what is the evidence, people may ask? So the evidence that God or Ishvara, his consciousness is non-material, is the fact that at the time of creation, before false ego is created, he thinks and he desires, may I become many. May I become many itself means that the Lord is aware that he exists. Because unless you are aware that you exist, how can you think of, may I become many? So that is evidence about Ishvara's non-material self-awareness. What about the living entity's non-material self-awareness? For that, this is the example. At the time of deep sleep, we do experience happiness and we even remember that pleasure. In fact, the greatest pleasure in material existence is the pleasure due to deep sleep. That is the time when one experiences the greatest peace, greatest tranquility. Okay. So that's a matter of common experience. Okay, anything else? This is some complicated thing. Okay, let me read out some portion from this. Okay, here is a translation of the initial portion of I'll only read one portion. May Krishna Chaitanya Chandra remain ever excellent. By the power of Panchatattva's mercy, the commentator Vidyabhushana revealed the sweet moon of Gita's truth that was covered by the cloud of Maya. Wait, do I have it? Did you send it to me? If you send it to me, then I can just share it on the screen and read it down. Any other thing? Following his commentary, Lowly Bhaktivinoda has written Vidvat Ranjan to explain his commentary on the sweetness of Gita, following his commentary, and offers respects to the pure devotee. Advaita Prabhu was a great devotee of the jewel of the Gita. I offer respects on the ground to him, capital H. Giving mercy to the servant of the Lord, holding his head, capital H. Or all the time he doesn't capitalize for Vishnu Tattva. Holding his head on my, holding his feet on my head, giving power to me, fulfill my desire. Merciful to the jivas of this world, he brought Gauri and taught the essence of the Tattva of Gita. If I attain his mercy, I can cross the ocean of Tattva. Tattva means philosophy. What doubt is there about this? O Gaura, O Nityananda, O Advaita, full of prema, O Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu Priya, O Gadachar, O Janava, O Vamshi Vadanananda, O Rup, O Sanatan, O Swarup Damodar, O Ramananda, O Srivas, O Sridhar. I am the most fallen and wretched. Your mercy is complete. You can bestow perfection to the full. Mercifully destroy all obstacles, reveal all the tattvas, and give me the power to write this commentary. With the intention of delivering the faithful jivas from the mouth of the tiger of ignorance, on the pretext of removing Arjuna's illusion, the Supreme Lord Krishna taught the Gita, which defines the nature of Atma. The 5 topics of Ishvara, the Lord, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, time, and karma are clearly deliberated on in the Gita Upanishad. Among them, the Ishvara is a great conscious entity, the Jiva is a minute conscious entity, matter which shelters Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas is Prakriti. A special substance, a special material substance devoid of the 3 gunas is time, and the fate produced by the Jiva's actions is called karma. In this way, the characteristics of these 5 are described. Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, and time are eternal. Jiva, Prakriti, and time are dependent on Ishvara. Karma is without beginning, but may have an end. Ishvara and Jiva both have consciousness, Samvit as their nature, or knowers. Both having consciousness, Samvit as their nature, are knowers and have a sense of I. The sense of I in Ishvara and Jiva is spiritual Ahankar. It is not the Ahankar generated from Mahatattva. When the Jiva is within Prakriti, the Ahankara born of Mahatattva arising from Prakriti takes shelter of the Jiva. When the Jiva becomes free of Prakriti, that Ahankara merges in Prakriti and does not associate with the liberated Jiva. Ishvara and Jiva are both doers, Karta, and experiencers, Bhokta. Bhokta means an experiencer rather than an enjoyer. Even though being a knower is accomplished from Samvit, consciousness. Like illumination comes from the sun, the illuminator, still Samvit, consciousness. And the knower manifests as different entities by distinction of Samvit, consciousness, and the person employing Samvit. There is no difference between them in actuality, but eternal distinguishable qualities become particular tattvas with different swarupas or nature. Thus, the Gita teaches the highest tattva in the form of eternal achintya bheda veda. Even in the absence of difference, there is perception of difference. This is an eternal principle. Internal or swagata difference arising in the state of quality and possessor of the quality is eternally unavoidable. The final deliberation on all these subjects may be seen in appropriate places in the Gita. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, now let's review a little bit. What is the similarity between Ishvara and Jiva? Super conscious, okay. What is the dissimilarity between Ishvara and Jiva? One is Vibhu and one is Siddha. Any other similarity between Ishvara and Jiva? No, definitely. Anything else? From what we have seen so far.
Both existed before.
Correct. Both existed before creation. Anything else?
Both of them are
Both of them are responsible agents. Both of them are doers. Both of them have experiences. Both of them have sense of self-awareness, which is not material. What is the distinction between? Okay, what is any similarity between Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, Karma? All are under control of Vishnu. Any similarity between Prakriti and Kala? Prakriti and Kala, both of them are material, first of all. Material means that which does not have self-awareness. That is what is called material. Material means that which does not have self-awareness. Karmic reactions also don't have self-awareness. That I don't know. That is not. You don't even need to say that. It is all part of ordinary Vedic common sense that Kala, time, is the force of destruction. In today's world, we think time is physics they study. It is a passive parameter denoting the state of a closed system. Sorry, but what it means is that it notes, just like we look at this clock, what exactly, and we say we can see the time in that. We all know that the effect of time, that we move only in one direction. In modern physics, they refer to it as the arrow of time. Time moves only in one direction, except in movies and novels where you can go in time machine. In reality, you cannot go back, you can only go front. And it forcibly drags the whole world in one direction. In the Vedic system, and before, during the time of the Greek philosophers in Europe, they had this conception that time is not just something that you see on the clock. Time is that which causes things to move forward and decay. And in Bhagavatam and all, we clearly understand that time, just like the cloud is moved by the wind, like that the conditioned soul is moved from birth all the way to death. So it is a destructive agency. In Sanskrit, the very word Kala means destroyer. And in Bhagavad Gita, we will come to that. Kala Kalayatamaha. Amongst all the destroyers, I am time. Because time itself is understood to be that which destroys. Okay. Karma is something else. Every material activity is going to produce a reaction. That reaction will limit me in my current experience of life. Okay. So one clearly understands in Vedic civilization that these three, they are the cause of dukkha, unfavorable experiences. Because Prakriti contains Satoguna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. Prakriti has a psychological effect on the jivas. Everything, it is some kind of, it's like when you, when you go to a mega city, road, there's advertisements all over. Huh? Because everybody is targeting you. They'll show you this. Like Google. Yes. Google itself has studied. Google knows us much better than our closest friends. It knows it studies us very carefully, and we get targeted advertisements. You know, when you go and do a simple Google search, Google will immediately point out particular things that it is already, it knows very well what we like, what we don't like, based on that. So Prakriti also has an effect on the jiva through Satoguna or Rajoguna or Tamoguna. These are three psychological influences on the jiva. Just like a magnet possesses the power of magnetism, Prakriti possesses the property of the three gunas. It has a psychological effect on us. Just as Earth possesses gravity, so like that Prakriti possesses the three modes. So the three modes are constantly affecting the jiva. And it is not just randomly affecting. It is very carefully, strategically, much more than Facebook. You know, they very carefully target and know what you like, what you don't like. Based on that, Prakriti affects you. Okay. So the problems created by Prakriti are of one type. Because anything you do, you get affected. And it is meant to affect you. Even colors, particular colors has particular effect on the mind. Not just color, food stuffs that you eat, everything has an effect on the mind. Okay. So the rules of material nature, the properties of material nature, that gives one type of problem. Kala gives another type of problem. Because it ensures that everything that you possess will be destroyed. It's a separate force. Separate from the force of Prakriti is the force of time, karma. Separate from these two is the force of karma. Apart from the fact that I will anyway, whatever I have will be destroyed. And I cannot just be normal, I am constantly affected by Satoguna. That is the third problem of karma. I did some activity past life, and now I have to suffer for them. I am caught up. So in these three ways, we are constantly subjected to unfavorable experiences. That is what is known as dukkha, disturbances. So this much even materialistic people in karma kanda understand. They may not understand self-realization, God-realization. That may be too complicated. They will say this is all very philosophical, we cannot follow. But this much they understand. They understand that reincarnation is reality. And they know that this life is just one episode in a never-ending TV series. Okay. So I earn my father, I earn my mother, I earn my wife, I earn my brother, I earn my sister. According to my karmic reactions, I receive that kind of experience from these people. Purva janma krita papani vyadhi rupena jayante. Ayurveda. That we get diseases according to previous lifetimes, sinful activities. So this much is just ordinary common sense. It's just ordinary common sense. But what we learn from Bhagavad Gita and higher scriptures is the nature of the living entity and Ishvara and so on. But in today's world, since we have no common sense, we need to learn this. For us, that is also uncommon. So we have to learn that also. Very useful. Okay, I'm coming to Prabhupada. The subject of the Bhagavad Gita entails a comprehension of 5 basic truths. First of all, the science of God is explained, and then the constitutional position of the living entity is Jiva. Okay, I want someone to now read loud until I say stop. Who can read? Mohan Radha, please. From There is Ishvara, page 7, first line, page 7. There is Ishwar.
So there is Ishvara, which means the controller, and there are yours, the living entities, which are controlled. If a living entity says that he is not controlled, but that is free, then he means a living being is controlled in every respect, at least in conditional line. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matter deals with the supreme controller and the jivas, the controlled living entity, the material nature and time, the duration of existence of the whole universe, or the manifestation of material nature and karma activity are all different. The cosmic manifestation is full of different activities. All living entities are engaged in different activities. From Bhagavad Gita, we must learn what God is, what the living entities are, what Prakriti is, what the cosmic manifestation is, how it is controlled by time, and what the activities of the living entities are. Out of these five basic subject matters in the Bhagavad Gita, it is established that the Supreme God, or Krishna, or Brahman, or the Supreme Controller, or Paramatma, you may use whatever name you like, is the greatest of all. The living beings are in quality like the Supreme Controller. For instance, the Lord of control over the universal affairs of nature, as is explained in the later chapters of the Gita. Material nature is not independent. She is acting under the directions of the Supreme Lord. As our Krishna says, Maya Bhakshena Pratiti Suyati Svaitaranam. This material nature is working under my direction. When we see wonderful things happening in the cosmic nature, we should know that behind this cosmic manifestation, there is a controller. Nothing could be manifested without being controlled. If a child is not considered a controller, for instance, a child may think that an automobile is quite wonderful to be able to run without a horse or other animals within it. But a sane man knows the nature of the automobile, engineering, and he also knows that behind the machinery there is a man, a driver. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the driver under whose direction everything is working. Now the jiva or the living entity have been accepted by the Lord, as we know in the later chapter, as part and parcel. A particle of gold is also gold. A drop of water from the ocean is also salt. And similarly, these are living entities, being part and parcel of the Supreme Controller, Equal or Bhagavan, Lord Sri Krishna, have all the qualities of the Supreme Lord in mining from the sea. Because we are mining Ishvara, coordinate Ishvara. We are trying to control nature. As physically we are trying to control space or time. And this ability to control is there because it is in Krishna. But also we have a tendency to log the connection with there. We should know that we are not the supreme controller. This is the nature.
Okay. Wait. So, there are a number of points that Prabhupada makes here to brings out certain similarities. Okay, like this example of particle of gold being gold, drop of water from the ocean. This is all originally from the scriptures themselves. Even the desire to control, even that is a symptom that we are similar to the Supreme Lord. It is very important. Prabhupada points out in some other places that it is very, very important that to understand that we are qualitatively similar to Krishna. That is because the jiva should not think that he is qualitatively one with Prakriti. That is a very important thing. Because this, see, for instance, my gross body, my subtle body, and everything connected to my gross body. These are not actually connected to the Jivatma himself as such. Not connected. Rather, the Jivatma belongs to the Supreme Personality of God. The relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Lord is in so many ways. So many ways it is explained. And in fact, when you study Srimad Bhagavatam, The subject matter taught in Bhagavad Gita will be even more true. Even in Bhagavad Gita, it is pointed out that the Supreme Lord is connected to the living entity in so many ways. The living entity exists for the Supreme Lord. The living entity is dependent on the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is inside the living entity also. In so many ways, Krishna is actually taking care of us because we belong to the Supreme. The scriptures explain in some places they say the living entities are like the children of the Supreme Personality of God. To make us understand that just as noble, civilized father or mother will always selflessly be affectionate to the child. Like that, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is selflessly affectionate towards us and fulfills whatever we require. It is also explained that the Supreme Lord is inside the living entity, with the living entity as a friend, in so many ways. And this point is repeatedly brought out that the living entity actually belongs to Ishvara. The living entity does not belong to Prakriti. And if the Jivatma wants to be peaceful and happy, he should disconnect himself from this. That point is repeatedly brought out. So therefore, the scriptures hundreds of times they point out that the Jivatma is quantitatively different from Ishvara, but qualitatively equal to Ishvara. In fact, you can say an equal number of times. That is why we say Achintya Bheda. It is important to understand that quantitatively is different. It is also important to understand that we are qualitatively one with God, because we do not belong to this world. We are actually qualitatively different from this world. So this point, very often will come in the scriptures. In Bhagavad Gita, few places you will come across it, but in Bhagavatam you will definitely come across it. Even here, Lord Krishna will indicate that point. Okay. Then, from what is material nature? Anant Prabhu, please read. From what is material nature? Page 8, first paragraph.
Material nature itself is constituted by three qualities.
No, before that.
What is material nature? This is also explained in the Gita as inferior prakriti, inferior nature. The living entity is explained as superior prakriti. Prakriti is always under the control, whether inferior or superior. Prakriti is female and she is controlled by the Lord just as the activities of a wife are controlled by the husband. Prakriti is always subordinate, predominated by the Lord, who is the predominator. The living entities and the material nature are both predominated, controlled by the Supreme Lord. According to the Gita, the living entities, although part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, are to be considered separately. This is clearly mentioned in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Abhadyam idastam anne prakriti nitine param. Jiva bhutam. This material nature is my inferior prakriti, but beyond this is another prakriti. Jiva Buddha, the living entities. Material nature itself is constituted by three qualities: the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. About these modes there is eternal time, and by the combination of these modes of nature and under the control and purview of the eternal time, there are activities which are called karma. These activities are being carried out from time immemorial, and we are suffering or enjoying the fruits of our activities. For instance, suppose I am a businessman and have worked very hard with intelligence and have amassed a great bank balance. Then I am the enjoyer. But then say I have lost all my money in business, then I am a sufferer. Similarly, in every field of life, we enjoy the results of our work or we suffer the result. This is called karma.
Okay. Now, within our own lives, we notice the phenomenon of cause and effect. We do certain activities for which we have to experience consequences in this very life. But the Vedic scriptures go one step further and point out that we engage in activities for which the consequences don't stop in this life. Sometimes, in fact, we will experience the consequences, in fact, most of the time, we experience the consequences of our activities only in a future life. Only in a future life. That is because, let us say, in my karmic queue for this lifetime, in this lifetime, I'm supposed to live as a royal, as a prince. So then, even if I engage in certain activities which will make me poor, that will simply get added into the queue. And in a future lifetime, I will get that. So it is not necessarily going to come now. In fact, in India, it is karma is so easily understood that, for instance, even the Buddhists, they do not accept Vedic authority. Okay. But even they accept that karma is real. They accept karma is real. They accept reincarnation, they accept karma. And if you ask them that you don't accept the scriptures of the Hindus, so why you accept reincarnation karma? Then they will immediately answer, it's just ordinary logic. It is very simple. Why some people are born blind? For what reason is a person born blind? Why would a person be born blind? There's no cause effect in this world, but everything is just simply happening. No, everything is uniform. See, nature moves in a uniform manner. There is a day, night, seasons. Everything is happening in a uniform manner. So on the basis of logic itself, we come to understand that there is a pattern. Nature functions in a uniform manner. So the law of karma is another feature of nature. It is a psychological law of nature. You have physical laws of nature, you have psychological laws. So these are psychological laws of nature. I remember in Tamil Nadu, there is a book which contains a set of proverbs, different types of proverbs. And in one of them, I remember, it's written by some sage. He says, he writes 10 verses about karma. It's in some ancient Tamil. And one point I remember very well. He says, you don't even need to believe in the Vedic Shastra to understand karma. Just open your eyes and see. You notice a palanquin being carried. Some rich person is sitting inside the palanquin, and 4 people are carried. Now just observe that and use your intelligence. Why is this man carrying outside and that person enjoying inside? It is simply karma, that's all. It is the most logical explanation to it. So in India, it is just considered ordinary common sense that you attain consequences of your activities over lifetimes. Over lifetimes. Even now in India, in South India, definitely we hear that this person is enjoying so much. Past life, he must have done a lot of lives. No other explanation. In fact, I myself, I know some people, they hardly prepare for any exam. And they go and simply write, and somehow on that spot they write everything correctly, and they get much more marks than people who have studied, memorized. Practically they go. So it is just ordinary logic. In India, when you talk about karma, everyone says yes. It's very common. Because they say, what is this? Without much hard work, how is he getting it? That means there is some other factor. There is a factor of karma. It was his previous karma. That's it. Karma is very, very important to understand. It is just ordinary material common sense. Astrology is simply reading of one's karmic actions. That's all. Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, Jiva, the living entity, Prakriti, nature, Kala, eternal time, and Karma, activity, are all explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Out of these 5, the Lord, the living entities, material nature, and time are eternal. The manifestation of Prakriti may be temporary, but it is not false. Some philosophers say that the manifestation of material nature is false, but according to the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, or according to the philosophy of the Vaishnavas, this is not so. The manifestation of the world is not accepted as false. It is accepted as real, but temporary. Next page. The position of Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, is that of supreme consciousness. The jivas or the living beings, living entities, being parts and parcels of the both the living entity and material nature are explained as Prakriti, the energy of the Supreme Lord. But one of the two, the Jiva, is conscious. The other Prakriti is not conscious. That is the difference. Therefore, the Jiva Prakriti is called superior because the Jiva has consciousness which is similar to the Lord's. The Lord's is supreme consciousness, however, and one should not claim that the Jiva, the living entity, is also supremely conscious. The living being cannot be supremely conscious at any stage of his perfection. And the theory that he can be so is a misleading theory. Conscious he may be, but he's not perfectly or supremely conscious. Supremely conscious means conscious of everything and at all points in time, without any disturbance. The distinction between the Jiva and the Ishvara will be explained in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is Kshetragiya, conscious as is the living being, but the living being is conscious of his particular body, whereas the Lord is conscious of all bodies. Swa Kshetragya, Sarva Kshetragya. This is the distinction. The Jivatma, he is conscious of his own field, Swa Kshetragya, whereas the Paramatma, he is Sarva Kshetragya. He is conscious of all the fields. Because he lives in the heart of every living being, he is conscious of the psychic movements of the particular jivas. We should not forget this. It is also explained that the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is living in everyone's heart as Ishvara, or the controller, and that he is giving directions for the living entity to act as he desires. The living entity forgets what to do. Forgets what to do means in this lifetime itself, he may forget what to do. Or in the next lifetime, he may forget what to do. Because I may desire something and then I forget it. But Paramatma doesn't forget. And that is a problem actually. Because if, let's say in this lifetime, I want to become, this is an expression coming from a member of the Madhya Sampradaya. I was very impressed. Say a person wants to become everything follows rules and regulations. Just because I desire it doesn't mean that I will get it. You may desire hundreds of things. So what does the Paramatma do? The Paramatma then starts pushing that living entity, that Jivatma, to what is this? I don't know what. So what the Supreme Lord does is he pushes that Jivatma to engage in that activity which will result in that. So suppose I want to be respected by 10,000 people. I need to have that degree of pious credits, sukriti. Without piety, you don't get all these things. Okay. So the Paramatma will start pushing that living entity to engage in that kind of pious activity, which will lead to that. Now, this living entity may be surprised. Why suddenly my life I'm getting this kind of experience? People are telling me I should come and do another food distribution. I should, be kind to the poor. Why suddenly, I'm being approached and I'm being dragged into all. It is all because of that desire. Now he might have forgotten that desire, but Paramatma doesn't forget because you desired it now. Now I'll provide you the means by which you can attain. If until the living entity consciously doesn't want it, oh, actually I desire it, I don't want it, I don't want it. Okay. Until he consciously doesn't desire it, it is added to that desire list. The Paramatma for that Jivatma 12743. It is added into the desire list. He wanted it. Now I should fulfill it. Because the Paramatma is like the father and mother of the child, always trying to fulfill all the crazy ideas that we all have. So, but fulfill it means not like magic. Oh, you want a beautiful woman? Okay, here, take. Not like that. Not like that. You have to engage in the pious activities and earn that beautiful. So you deal with women nicely, according to Dharma in this life. You deal with your mother nicely, your sister nicely, your wife nicely. Everything is proper. Even if she is ugly and shouting at you, screaming at you, within the boundaries of dharma, you take care of all of these people properly. Then in the next lifetime, you'll get that kind of. Now, by now, you might have forgotten also, but the Lord doesn't forget. So, in that way, we desire, we may forget, but the Supreme Lord doesn't. But he will go on impelling, but without breaking the laws of nature. That is very important because you cannot experience happy material life by breaking the laws of nature. If you want to continue to be born as a human being, if you agree to go down as an animal, that's a different issue. But if you are in karmanubandhini manashya loke, you want to experience life as a human being, which is the intermediate status. Animals is lower than that. Human is intermediate, then the devas, they get more freedom. They get more freedom because they are more obedient, more pious. Okay. So corresponding to our community actions, the Supreme Lord guides us, pushes us. The Supreme Conscious Ishvara is similar to the living entity in this way. Both the consciousness of the Lord and that of the living entity are transcendent. It is not that consciousness is generated by the association of matter. That is a mistaken idea. The theory that reflected by the coloring of material circumstances, just as light reflected through colored glass may appear to be a certain color, but the consciousness of the Lord is not materially affected. If he were so affected, he would be unfit to speak on transcendental matters as he does in the Bhagavad Gita. So the Lord is not materially contaminated. Our consciousness at the present moment, however, is materially contaminated. That means we are trying to experience happiness within matter. That is what is called materially contaminated consciousness. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that we have to purify this materially contaminated consciousness. In pure consciousness, our actions will be dovetailed to the will of the Ishvara, and that will make us happy. When we are materially contaminated, we are called conditioned. False consciousness is exhibited under the impression that I am a product of material nature. My body is a product of material nature. And when I imagine that I am this, then that is an exhibition of false consciousness. This is called false ego. One is absorbed in the thought of bodily conceptions, cannot understand this situation. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken to liberate one from the bodily conception of life. And Arjuna put himself in this position in order to receive this information from the Lord. All the instructions of Bhagavad Gita are intended to awaken this pure consciousness. And therefore, we find at the last stage of the Gita's instructions that Krishna is asking Arjuna whether he is now in purified consciousness. Purified consciousness means acting in accordance with the instructions of the Lord. Finally, at the end, Krishna is asking Arjuna, so, are you okay? And then Arjuna, he says, my delusion is destroyed. I have regained my memory. By your mercy, I Achyuta, Stithosmini, now I am well situated. Gatasandev, I have no doubts. Karishye Vachanamta, I will do what you say. So now he is not in delusion, and he is saying, I will do whatever you say. So from this only, Prabhupada is developing the idea that this is pure consciousness. No delusion means you are pure. Okay. So a state of non-delusion means, like Arjuna, you will also say, Karishye Vachanam Tam. When I individually start telling Krishna that I will do whatever you say, then it is indicating that I am in pure consciousness. All the higher Prema Bhakti rasas contain the features of the lower Prema Bhakti rasa known as Dasya rasa. In Dasya rasa, we have the desire to please the Supreme Lord. In Sakhya rasa, Vatsalya rasa, Madhurya rasa also, this basic idea that I should please Krishna is always there. Actively, I should please Krishna. In Shanta rasa, lower than that, there is the idea that I should not be interested in anything material. I should not be interested in anything selfish. And I should be focused on Krishna. those features also are found in the higher Prema Bhakti rasas. So the Dasya rasa that Lord Chaitanya talks about, that Rupa Goswami talks about, pure Dasya rasa. Arjuna is indicating that here. What is this consciousness? This consciousness is I am. Then what am I? In contaminated consciousness, I am means I am the Lord of all I serve. I am the enjoyer. I am the Lord of all I serve. Even a small child has this consciousness. That to the maximum possible extent, I would like to grab everything around me and use it the way I want. This is what is called enjoyment. That I take it and use it for my purpose. This is what is called enjoyment. The world revolves because every living being thinks that he is the Lord and creator of the material world. Material consciousness has two psychic divisions. One is that I am the creator, and the other is that I am the enjoyer. But actually, the Supreme Lord is both the creator and the enjoyer. And the living being part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is neither the creator nor the enjoyer, but a cooperator. He is the created and the enjoyed. For instance, a part of a machine cooperates with the whole machine. A part of the body cooperates with the whole body. So, Prabhupada explains that the relationship between us and the Supreme Lord is that we are subordinate cooperators. We are meant to be subordinate cooperators. And he gives the example of the senses and the stomach, which is straight coming from Bhagavatam. Yathataro Mula Nishechane Jovashan. It's coming from that. The central figure of creation and of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, and the living entities are cooperators. By cooperation, they enjoy. See, so many times Prabhupada uses this word cooperate, cooperator, and so on, to indicate that when we try to please the Supreme Lord, we are also pleased. Therefore, the concept of cooperation comes. Because in a cooperative endeavor, everybody derives benefit. Everybody experiences the gain or profit of that cooperative endeavor. So when the Jivatma serves Ishvara, the Jivatma is also happy. In fact, the Ishvara, he shares his bliss with the Jivatma. So in that way, both of them experience happiness. By cooperation, they enjoy. The relation is also like that of the master and the servant. If the master is fully satisfied, then the servant is satisfied. Similarly, the Supreme Lord should be satisfied, although the tendency to become the creator and the tendency to enjoy the material world are also there in the living entities, because these tendencies are there in the Supreme Lord who has created the manifested cosmic world. The servants get to eat the same food that the masters eat. It's not that the servants eat some third-class food. They eat remnants of the master's food, and it happens to be the same food. It is not some other food. One time I had the opportunity of going to a devotee's house, congregation devotee, family. Their house is a palace, like a bungalow, let me call it a big. And I had to, for some reason, I had to go to the basement. For some reason, I forgot what. And they showed me the servants' quarters. The servants' quarters is more opulent than what I had anyway seen. So I was very astonished. Wow, what is this? Oh, these are just servants now. So fair human necessities. But they get to eat the same food. I mean, everything is there. Only thing is, when it is time to eat, then all the family members, that means the boss, Mrs. Boss, and someone with his wife and children, some too with his wife and children, and occasionally the daughter visits and some friends come. This one, whenever they are hungry and all, the servants have to cook and provide, and naturally they will cook more than what the guests actually require, because they are there, so that they can eat, and which is all allowed. Fine. It's just an ordinary Indian family. Actually, it was a North Indian family in some city in South India. But it's just considered normal. Then I was reflecting that if this is the situation, then this is how it would. This is a pale reflection. of how it would be in serving the Supreme Lord in his opulent abode of Vaikuntha, Vishnu Lord. Then you are expected to serve and you're happy, blissful. If the master is fully satisfied, then the servant is satisfied. Okay, so in Bhagavad Gita, we get to find this information. All these taken together, meaning all these 5 subjects taken completely form the complete whole, and the complete whole is called the Supreme Absolute Truth. The complete whole, the complete absolute truth, or the complete personality of God is Sri Krishna. All manifestations are due to his different energies. He is the complete whole. Okay, now we may come up with questions about, but then what about this impersonal Brahman? And so on. What about that? So then Prabhupada explains that this impersonal Brahman, that is also considered subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the impersonal Brahman is actually the content of incomplete realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, we don't believe in 3 gods. There is no Brahman God, Paramatma God, Bhagavan God. There is only one Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Bhagavan. But that Bhagavan may be perceived partially, or he may be perceived even more vaguely. So in order to distinguish between the content of vague perception or the content of partial perception, we talk as if Paramatma is different from Bhagavan and as if Brahman is different from Paramatma. But in reality, is one. Just like, for instance, see, there is a rainbow. The rainbow is Vijaya, or contains the 7 colors. Okay. But let us say there is a person who is colorblind. There are people who are colorblind. They cannot see colors. They can see black, white, and gray scale. So now this colorblind person, when he looks at the rainbow, what he is seeing, the rainbow is the same. We know there's only one rainbow. It's not that there's another rainbow. He's seeing the same rainbow. But what he's seeing is different from what a regular person is seeing. And it is important to understand that. So like that, the person who is Brahman realized, when he meditates on the Supreme Lord Krishna, Krishna reveals his Brahman effulgence to him. That doesn't mean that Brahman is different from Krishna, but he is only able to see the Brahman effulgence of Krishna. He cannot see Krishna. Just like the colorblind person can only see black, white, and gray scale of the same object. It is not a different object. So the object of realization is termed of the impersonalist is referred to as impersonal Brahman. We should clearly understand this. We are not a mixed group of impersonalist and personalist. Our explanation of the impersonal Brahman is exactly like this. Just like the sun as seen by the human beings is in the form of effulgence. But the Devas don't see it just as an effulgence. They see a person, Surya Deva, who's a demigod. So like that, but it's the same person. It is not that the sun is different from the sun god. The sun god is perceived as a sun. So similarly, impersonal Brahman is what we perceive. When you are not qualified and you are trying to meditate on the Supreme Lord reciprocates with you by revealing his impersonal effulgence alone. That's all. That is why Prabhupada keeps saying the shining rays of the Supreme Personality of God. In the 15th chapter, it shall be seen that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Purushottama is above both impersonal Brahman and the partial realization of Paramatma. It shall be seen in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. It does not feature in Bhagavad Gita as it is, but it comes in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation to the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So Brahman realization is realization of his Sat or eternity feature. Paramatma realization is realization of his Satchit eternal knowledge feature. So Krishna is not impersonal. Krishna is impersonal. All Vedic knowledge is infallible, and Hindus accept Vedic knowledge to be complete and fallible and infallible. Complete. Complete means it is completely relevant. Everything that we require to know is found in the Vedas. For instance, let me show you this. What is this? This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, a statement of Uddhava. Famous verse, Jiva Goswami refers to it in Tattva Sandarbha. Pitrideva Manusyanam Vedaschakshustaveshvara Shreyastvan Upalabdhe Sadhya Sadhana Yorapi. My dear Lord, to understand those things beyond direct experience, such as spiritual liberation or the attainment of heaven and similar material enjoyments, and in general to understand the means and end of all things, it is imperative that the forefathers, demigods, and human beings consult the Vedic literatures. For these literatures, being your own laws, constitute the highest evidence and revelation. 11.20.4. Now, there are a number of things that we can understand from this. That the Vedas, first of all, give us information about that which is beyond our direct experience. That is one important plus point. Because we know that there are plenty of things which are beyond our direct experience. So the Vedas give information about that. That is one. Okay. Another thing that the Vedas talk about is all possible purusharthas, all possible goals that can be attained, and all possible means to attain those goals. That also the Vedas teach. So they teach you about tattva, sadhya, and sadhana. Tattva means something that exists. Specifically, things which are beyond our range of perception. That the Vedas inform us about. All the different goals that can be attained and all the different means by which you can attain those goals. All of that information comes in the Vedas. So therefore, it is said to be complete. Everything that we need to know is presented in the Vedas. Now you may say it doesn't talk about the properties of some complex molecule that has been recently discovered, but that is not going to help you attain the various goals in life. Okay, it is not going to help you attain artha, kama. It is not actually a direct means of that. You may say it is a component of a means by which I can later on attain enhanced artha, kama. But it is not going to be capable. It is definitely that information is not capable of providing you artha, kama in your next life. And that you have next life, that you reincarnate. That is understood simply through pratyaksha and anumana. Through sense perception and logic, you understand that there is reincarnation and karma. Okay. For example, cow dung is the stool of an animal, and according to Smriti or Vedic injunction, if one touches the stool of an animal, he has to take a bath to purify himself. But in the Vedic scriptures, cow dung is considered to be a purifying agent. One might consider this to be contradictory, but it's accepted because it is Vedic injunction. Indeed, by accepting this, one will not commit a mistake. Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we are researching things with imperfect senses. We have to accept perfect knowledge which comes down, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, by the parampara disciplic succession. Now, this very concept of perfect is something that people in the modern world are very allergic to. They don't like this kind of bold, courageous, straightforward, uncompromised presentation. And usually they like to give the impression that I'm imperfect, you're imperfect, everybody is imperfect, and you cannot become perfect. Even when they come to study the Vedic scriptures, they try their best to drag everyone down to the platform of imperfection. Even if it's something as simple as Bhagavad Gita, no, you cannot have perfect knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. You cannot have perfect knowledge of God. You cannot. No, it's impossible that perfect knowledge of the scriptures can come through a parampara. The parampara must be imperfect. That knowledge must be imperfect. I'll spend my whole life and I'll prove that it is imperfect. All you people are wasting your time because there's no such thing as perfect knowledge coming through a perfect. Constantly they're stuck with that problem. But this is a very important point that we have to accept perfect knowledge as it comes down through perfect disciplic succession. Here, the Gita should be taken as the most perfect presentation of Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is received from transcendental sources, and the first words were spoken by the Lord himself. The words spoken by the Lord are called Apaushayi, meaning that they are different from words spoken by a person of the mundane world who is infected with four defects. A mundaner is sure to commit mistakes, is invariably illusion, has the tendency to cheat others, and is limited by imperfect senses. With these four imperfections, one cannot deliver perfect information of all pervading knowledge. You cannot give information about knowledge about everything. Now, Krishna does not have this defect. And the entire process of pure bhakti yoga is to make us qualified to directly receive Krishna's perfect guidance. We will come across this later on in Bhagavad Gita. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam yena mam prayanti tesham evanakam partham aham jnanajam tamam ashayamyatmam pavastu jnanadipena bhasvatam. So the entire process is the perfect pure devotees, they train those who want to come to that platform. They train them that you must also surrender unto Krishna's lotus feet. Engage in nothing less than pure devotional service. You engage in pure devotional service, then you become eligible to be directly guided by Krishna. There is no need to fear that this will create havoc in the practitioner's life. Because if one is a transparent via medium, a perfect pure Vaishnava is a transparent via medium to the Supreme Personality of God. So he will always present Krishna's attitude and Krishna's instructions perfectly, properly, the way we are meant to actually accept it. So therefore, one will not experience any duality between the instructions of the spiritual authority and the instructions of the Supreme Personality of God. It would be identical. Vedic knowledge is not imparted by such defective living entities. It was imparted unto the heart of Brahma, the first created living being. And Brahma in his turn disseminated this knowledge to his sons and disciples as he originally received it from the Lord. In this world, men are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. Men must be intelligent to realize the importance of human life and refuse to act like ordinary animals. A human being should realize the aim of his life, and this direction is given in all Vedic literatures, and the essence is given in Bhagavad Gita. Vedic literature is meant for human beings, not for animals. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly explained that there are three kinds of activities according to the different modes of nature. The activities of goodness, of passion, and of ignorance. Similarly, there are three kinds of eatables also, eatables in goodness, passion, and ignorance. All of this is clearly described. And if you properly utilize the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, then our whole life will become purified. And ultimately, we will be able to reach the destination which is beyond this material state. So from Bhagavad Gita, we learn about what is known as Gunatraya Viveka, distinction between the effect of the three modes of material nature. The idea is that as long as we have a subtle body and a gross body, we need to function within this world. But when we function within this world, if we organize it in such a manner that Sattva Guna impact is maximized, then we are keeping ourselves in a very favorable environment. Sattva Guna is favorable for spiritual progress, progress in bhakti, progress in jnana, progress in yoga, and progress in bhakti also. Whereas Rajoguna is distracting. Tamoguna is the exact opposite. Rajoguna is distracting, but Sattva Guna is favorable. So, a lot of content in Bhagavad Gita is about that which is Bhakti Anukul. And now you notice that Prabhupada is pointing out that we will be able to reach a particular destination. Now, let me just now one last thing. Close. Tomorrow I will resume from this point. So far, notice that in this introduction, Prabhupada is brought out what is the source of valid knowledge? The highest source of valid knowledge is Vedic scripture. You can understand, you can learn things from your senses, but you can also learn certain things from logical inference. There are many things we learn from logical inference. For instance, when somebody commits a crime, then the detectives go and it is through logic that they try to understand. See, this person came, he came and stole this thing. And then the fingerprints are there, the fingerprints are matching. It's through logic. And nobody saw that thief steal. Okay, so it is through logic. So Pratyaksha, sense perception is one source of valid knowledge under certain things. Logical inference, that is another source of valid knowledge into particular conditions. Similarly, acceptance of authority is a third source, and the spotless method of accepting authority is to accept Vedic authority. The person has already got it, command. And then he has already spoken about what exists. What exists? If you go and ask modern scientists, he will say, he will show you a periodic table. And he will say, this is what exists. Hydrogen, helium, all this. You will not, and if you ask, what about living beings? Then he will say, well, that we are researching, we are trying to find out. And if you ask, what is material nature? They'll say, we are researching. What is time? We are researching on that also. Now, why some people are born blind, some people are like this? We are researching about that also. So, how about God or anything that totally blank. But these are the purpose. This is what exists. What is the spiritual world? The spiritual world is internal energy of Ishvara. So if you carefully examine, everything that you think about comes to the next. What exists? Then there are two more things which Prabhupada now will turn his attention. Sadhya and sadhana. What is going to be the goal? And what is meant to be the means to attain that goal? These two we have already seen, and these two we will see next. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare. Any questions? Otherwise, we'll close up. You can also ask questions in the group. Yes, sir.
One point. What is the border between impure use and pure use? The principle of Kalichinam Tava, which explained, so, as the border between impure use and pure use.
One may agree to become a devotee of Krishna. One may agree to please Krishna in order to attain Dharma. One may have a desire to please the Supreme Lord in order to attain freedom from birth and death. But a pure devotee is one who wants to please the Supreme Lord just to please the Supreme Lord. So he has a desire to attain Dharma. So that is a very important distinction between the pure devotee and the pure devotee. The goal. Both are engaged in the same activity, but internally his desire is different. That is a very important point. there are some other components also in certain situations. One may mix his practice of bhakti with other activities, or one may not mix. That is also. We'll come across. Anything else?
The Lord is called Apurusheya.
No, the Lord is not called Apaurushaya. The Vedic scriptures are called Apaurushaya. The Vedic scriptures are called Apaurushaya. Apaurushaya means, in this context, it simply means human. Apaurushaya means non-human. It means not defective. In the Shruti, the Shruti is Apaurushaya in a very special sense. It is audio. Okay. And in all the different universes and at all points in time, the Shruti mantras will be identical. So, Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam Yatincha Jagadyam Jagat will always be that. Whereas with the Smriti scriptures, they may go through different editions and with different wordings also. So, the next day of Brahma, when Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita, it may not be identical to this. They have some new wordings, different wording, anything. But Shruti is not. Always it will be. Same thing, same thing. So the four Vedas are called Shruti. So there, technically the expression that is used is the Varna Krama is intact. Varna Krama. Varna. Sorry. The Varna Krama is intact in Shruti. That means the sequence of letters Isha, Vasya, Nendam, Sarvam. It is a sequence of letters. It is intact. It is always the same. The word order, syllable order, letter order is identical. Never changes. In the Shruti changes. But the meaning of Shruti is clarified in Smriti. The meaning of Shruti is clarified in Smriti. In fact, the Shruti is Nirnaya, Smriti is Nirnayaka. When we talk about Smriti, we are talking about Smriti which is fully in line with Shruti. Because one may be a sage and he may also write something defective mixed in with something which is modified. So that kind of defective Smriti Prabhupada doesn't recognize it, doesn't talk about it. We are talking about recognized Smritis. Recognized Smritis are more important than Shruti because they clarify Shruti. All right. So Bhagavad Gita will continue tomorrow. One chapter